Call the meeting to order here at 1 Academy Street at the Swanton Town office on Tuesday, December 7th at 7:04. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and join us. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda review. Anything? Think they got anything? You got anything for?
No, just, it's on here, just want to reiterate, the library proposal for this year was moved back one more week till next week.
Okay. Then we'll cross that out then. All right. Nicole, anything changes?
Mr. Clark is here to give an update on the 4th Street property
Okay.
committee.
All right. Is that on there or no? We need to add it? Okay.
It's gonna be added under, D on Old Town Business. It'll be not just Fourth Street, but a
Yep.
discussion of the location for a rec community center.
Okay. Okay. Earl, anything?
Brian, did, you get contacted today?
Yes, by Corey Parent.
Okay,
Yes.
so that has, it's not on the agenda.
Not on the agenda. We could, if you'd like, we can add it
Yeah.
under community and
Yeah.
economic development.
Yeah.
It'll just
Yeah.
take a minute.
Yeah, okay.
B?
B,
Yeah. What do we wanna call it?
well,
Well,
I'm
it
not
is
sure.
economic
It
development.
is economic
Okay.
development. I'm
Yeah.
not sure what it's
Okay.
possibility of a joint St. Albans
Okay,
Town and
I'll just
Swanton
put
Town
joint then.
project. I guess it's
Swanton
Swanton Village too.
I think good, close enough. Anything else, Earl?
No, that's it.
Kathy?
I'm good, thank
Joseph? Anything? No? Brian, anything to add?
No, that was,
All right. David?
Just to note that the appointment, of Brian
Mhm.
as, deputy zoning administrator is postponed.
Okay.
Planning Commission meets in January 19th,
Yep.
and they like to have a say.
Evening, folks. Come on in, have a seat. Okay. You add anything?
I'm good, James.
You're good?
Thank you.
All right. I hear a motion to approve the minutes from November 16th regular meeting.
I move. I'll second those.
All right. Any other discussion on them? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Public comment? Any got anything to say under public comment that's not on the agenda? Okay. Anything on Zoom? No? All right. Law enforcement, police chief report, and contract proposal. Hey, Dave.
Welcome.
I think you brought the whole book with you.
Yeah, I have a lot of stuff today, actually. So,
Yeah.
I'll go over the numbers first, and I'll give those to everybody. I'm not sure if they were emailed to everybody or not.
I don't move myself.
Those I haven't seen that. So.
My apologies about that.
That's okay.
Fortunately, Officer Gilbert is a little laid up these days.
I
with
need
his
one,
broken
yeah.
foot.
Is
So-
it? Don't see you running too fast, is it?
Oh, no, not on.
Yep.
So for the month of November, we had approximately 55 calls for service. And I'm going to elaborate on some of the things that have been going on in the town as far as the types of calls we've been getting. 13 motor vehicle warnings for the month, and 1 civil violation for operating after a suspended license. In regards to the calls we got this month, we've noticed a little bit of an uptake in juvenile problems. The school's actually been really busy. Our SROs have been doing a really good job trying to take care of a lot of incidents that have been coming up at the school, so we've definitely noticed it a little uptick. And domestics as well have seemed to have popped up a lot in the town for some reason. We're not sure, not so much in the village, but the town this past month has been a little busy with those. One noteworthy incident that we did have happen is we actually had a missing person. It was, had a very good outcome, if I could find the sheet. Here we go. So our officers got called out to French Hill, actually. It was right on the edge of town. We had a missing hunter.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know about that.
He ended up wandering off. Officer Dubois and Officer Cooper ended up going out there with Fairfield Fire, Vermont search and rescue. They did a search of the area, went all the way into the swamp, and we were actually able to find him and bring him out safely. But that was sort of one of noteworthiness from the month that sort of stuck out in my head.
Good job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Let's see. The other thing, when I was here last time, I was telling the board about our survey that we did for public safety. We ran that for about a little over a month, and we got the numbers back. A lot of the stuff really wasn't too surprising. Unfortunately, a lot of stuff from the peanut gallery, we'll just call it that, people making comments on it.
Yeah.
We did open it up to people so they could make specific comments. And a lot of constructive stuff, some stuff that we never thought was an issue, but it's good for us to get this feedback. Some of the stuff we obviously knew, drug activity, motor vehicle stuff. Common thread with all this, both the village and the town, they want to see more law enforcement, they want to see more visibility. And also, it looks like, I call it more outreach, they want us to be more open with the public, to fill them in on what's going on in the community, and that's valid. Absolutely, we should be doing that more, and that is something we're gonna be stepping into. We have the new chief coming in next month, so I emailed a copy of it to him today, so we could sort of kinda, get a barometer of what's going on, to see where he wants to take the department at that point. But I do have copies of it for everybody if they wanna read it. It's, like I said, it's sort of interesting. Like I said, there's some comments on there that are disrespectful and, but like I said, a lot of them were very constructive,
Yeah.
so. But we try to be transparent.
Try to take the better out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So I'll give that, and I apologize if I don't have enough copies of this, I just ran it off.
that's okay. We can make copies if we want.
I got one.
You got? I'll take one.
I have extras.
I'll take
I give one to James. Anybody else?
A lot there.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. I had a good read the other night when I was going through it. And we tried to break it down into age groups, did percentages with it. Again, a lot of it is people's perception. A lot of it is valid complaints. Like I said, stuff that we knew was happening. And stuff we've already addressed on several fronts. Drug activity, we've been hitting that hard lately. We were able to eliminate a couple of our prime spots in the
Good.
village. We have 2 more that we're going after right now, and hopefully one will soon be gone. And then the 4th one we're looking at without getting into too much. That's a work in progress, but those were our 4 big targets, and we've pretty much eliminated them. Not to say we're not going to have drug activity, but our 4 big ones, we've basically been able to,
Good.
hit them hard. So. Trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's it, with the exception of the contract.
Anybody got any other questions on this before we go to contract?
It's all good. Good information. I'll take a look at it after.
Yeah,
Yeah, some of it's definitely entertaining reading.
Yeah.
definitely.
We just gotta filter out the uses.
Absolutely.
I think we got contract proposals in page 3, it says,
Yep.
so we must have it here.
And I also printed up some additional ones if anybody needs them for what we were looking at.
Copies.
David, if I can start on this one, if I may, about the
Absolutely.
contracts. So, just so everybody's aware, I have asked and worked with Swanton PD, giving us multiple proposals for town coverage for the new year. Kind of where we are with the standard 56 hours a week, and a couple other variable options for increased presence. Dollar value, some of them are eye-opening, but I think David and Reggie and Lynn have really dug down and kind of gave us some fair numbers compared to the other enforcement agencies within that would probably offer something. But I'll say that I know I've worked with David and Reggie and Lynn. Kudos to you guys. It's just a matter of what coverage do we want. We know you've got to be there, as the survey is saying. You guys got to be there. What route we want to take, I don't know the answer, but I certainly know it took time to put this together. So certainly thank you for putting the proposals together.
Absolutely.
I gotta assume this page here is our current
It's
contract,
it would be the current 56 hours going into the new year.
if we maintain the same coverage we have now.
Correct.
And what was it last year?
131, I believe. I think it was.
Yeah, 131 something.
And so that's a little over 20,000, $25,000 increase. Actually, what was that increase driven by?
I think it was insurance. I thought it was insurance last year.
Insurance, workman's comp,
Yeah.
those, pretty much all the police-related things have stayed consistent, but health insurance, workman's comp, any of those type of, like, fringe benefit type of things have skyrocketed. This year, they're going up even more.
Now, if you wanted David go over kind of these here and kind of give them an understanding how it's working, take the year.
So we have two proposals, or actually three. The first one obviously is to stay status quo with what we're doing right now with the 8 hours of coverage a day. The other two that we've been working on, one of them we favor because we think it's going to give the best bang for the buck as far as police coverage goes. It would mirror the village, would be our, we would like to go 20 hours a day in the town, starting at 6 a.m. all the way up to 2 in the morning, with our officers being all on call from 2 in the morning till 6 in the morning. So if an emergency call came in after that time, we would get called, we'd get up out of bed and come in and deal with any of those calls. We would have to, trying to think, we would have to expand the amount of officers we have by roughly 2.5, but it's nothing we couldn't handle doing that. And again, as far as the cost of it with the COPS grant that the town that the village has right now, for the first 3 years, the town would get a 40% discount with the, 60% discount with the federal government paying 40% of the salary, the town paying 60% of one of the officers' salaries, because that's all we have left on the COPS grant, because we've already used it for the village already for some of those. So roughly you would get a discount every year of $41,666.67, and that's for whether we go with a 10-hour contract or 20-hour-a-day contract, or the other option we have is to do a contract of 16 hours per day instead of the 20, and we probably, I would have to say, would not be on call for that. We would probably defer to the state police on the overnight shift to handle any
From the 2 to
emergencies.
6.
Yep. So, like I said, as far as, obviously with the 20-hour-a-day, with the 4 hours on call, there's gonna be a market increase, but compared to any of the other law enforcement agencies in the county, we can offer a much better price. It would be much more expensive for the other agencies to hop on. Franklin County, St. Albans City, unfortunately VSP doesn't really do law enforcement contracts anymore. They're the default agency to any town or city that doesn't have a police department, or if there's a lapse in coverage, they're the default agency, but they'll only go out for rather large emergencies, not run-of-the-mill stuff, which we would go out to. Like, let's say an alarm came in on the night, overnight, they probably would not respond to that, especially if it's a registered one. That's just their policy. Whereas we do in the village, if we get an alarm for Ace Hardware, let's say, we'll go to that. So, but so those are the two proposals that we have. As I said, we prefer the two 10-hour shifts. There'd be one officer in the town during the day, one at night. They would have backup from the village and vice versa. So there would always be, at the very minimum, 2 police officers in Swanton between the town and the village. So there'd always be backup officers for officer safety as well. Because we did look at additional numbers if we wanted to do multiple officers for the town and the village, basically make it one large Swanton Police Department for everybody. When we ran the numbers, I was realistic. It's a little bit of a big bite to chew. It's obviously that may come sometime down the line if that's what everybody between the village and the town decides they want to do. Just like with the fire department, that could be figure out how to fund that later on. But like I said, for the time being, if coverage wanted to be expanded, these are the two things that we can do. In our estimated start date, obviously it would have to go to the taxpayers. They would have to vote for it. At that point, we would go through the process of hiring the additional 2.5 officers, because we'd still stay with the one officer for the town that you guys have now, and we'd have to add those additional 2.5 officers to cover the remaining time.
So the present officer that covers the town now, that's all he does?
Just the town, yep. And we do have officers, there's not one specifically assigned to the town. It rotates depending on who's working. Like tonight, for instance, I believe it's Officer Calb who's working the town, but tomorrow night it may be Officer Dubois. We just, it depends on what the scheduling is.
David, this final number on either one of these, the bold, say this one, 290,096. That's the full price, not including the 40%. So that would be the fourth year cost.
Oh, that's the other thing with this, because it is a federal contract, and I did forget to say that, if the town would like to take advantage of the COPS grant, it is a commitment of 4 years. 3 years of that, the federal government pays that 60%, I'm sorry, 40% percentage. The fourth year, the town would be required to pay the entire salary of those officers. That's just the obligation of signing on with the COPS grant. We do the same thing with the village. One of them's, we actually have our school resource officer now is funded with that, and we hired, I believe it was Officer Calb actually, or Officer Cooper, I forget, under the COPS grant. So right now, a large percentage of his salary is being paid by the federal government for the first 3 years. After that point, the village has to pick up the bill. And through attrition or whatever, we may have people leaving, people coming or whatever, those numbers tend to wash out, so we usually never have to lay anybody off or get rid of them. But that would be the one caveat that I would give to the town, that you would have to, as in our old contract, it's basically every year there would have to be a commitment to this.
Well, right now, we have one officer that won't qualify. They're not getting the 40%.
No, because they're not a new hire, it would have to be a new hire.
Have to be new hire.
New
and
position,
that's only
basically.
For 3 years, after that, we're on our own.
Yes, just for that one position. The other officers would have to be hired at their regular salary.
Okay, so we're only getting out with one officer, and you're talking about adding 2.5 more.
So the officer, we would have one right now, and then
Yeah.
we would have to have 2.5 officers to cover 20 hours a day. So we would, the department, I wouldn't even look at the amount of officers, that's just what we would need to do for staffing, but we would roughly have to hire 2.5 officers.
That's if they were going with a 3.5.
With 3, yep. But during that time, one of those officers would be discounted, so the town would not be paying the full salary of that officer for 3 years. At the fourth year, that's when the full salary kicks in, so the contract would creep up a little.
So you're gonna increase by 2.5 the total department, but the town is only actually getting one more officer than it has now.
Well, you would be getting day shift coverage,
Yeah, but it's still, that's just one more officer.
just one
Well,
officer.
we're
Like it's-
basically going from 8 hours a day coverage to 20 hours a day coverage.
Yeah, I understand
Yeah,
that, but you're not
yeah.
adding 2.5 specifically for that purpose then.
To cover the town, we would have to, because we would, right now, we just have one officer covering that time.
So another officer and a half is gonna be required.
Yeah, so we'd have a total of 3.5 to be able to cover 20 hours a day, 7 days a
So
week.
they're only gonna be working 8-hour shifts then.
10-hour shifts.
10
We
hours.
decided to go to 10-hour shifts because that works out the best. If we went to 8-hour shifts, which is the other proposal here, we would have to hire a half an officer less. I don't even like thinking of hiring half a person, but
Yeah.
we would have to hire half a person less, and you would only get 8 hours a day with probably no call-out service after hours. It would have to default to the Vermont State Police.
So basically, they're working 10-hour shifts, but they're only working 40 hours a week.
Each officer would be working
Yeah.
40 hours a
So
week.
that's where the other half officer comes in and make up for
Exactly.
the, okay.
And there may be, at one point in the week, there may be a little overlap, so there may be an extra officer. So that would, we could, obviously, if you guys are paying for that, you guys may, at some point during the week, get an extra officer on a shift for maybe one shift. So you may have 2. We'd have to see what the scheduling is right now. We're still, matter of fact, look at the schedule. There may be, on our schedule that we did, we could play around with the days of where we schedule people, but it looks like Wednesdays, for instance, we would have an extra officer, because that half an officer, we'd still have that It's a whole officer, but we'd have the extra half, so that would probably translate to having that extra person in the town, or we could have them as a float, or you know, something we could play around with, assign them to maybe traffic if we wanted to. So that happened. When I worked for Montpelier Police Department, we had 10-hour, we were 24 hours a day, but we worked 10-hour shifts. And there was always 1 or 2 days during the week, it was usually Wednesday or Tuesday, that we were extremely heavy with people, just because of the way the schedule rotated, so.
I guess, you know, I mean, you're asking for, I mean, we're gonna ask the community for a significant increase in the police.
Well, if that's what we decide to do, Earl.
I know,
Yeah,
but,
Yeah.
I guess one of the concerns I would have, that I don't know how we're gonna deal with this, but wonder if they wrote it down.
then we go back to the
Then you
8
go
hours.
back to the,
8
that
hours,
would be
yeah.
my thought. is go back.
Because what he already said was, if we decided to go this and voted it, then they have to hire the people to fill these
I
positions, so.
understand
yeah.
that, but if we're asking
Mhm.
the voters to approve 400 and some odd thousand,
Yeah.
and they don't approve it, we don't have any money for the police budget.
Well, we'd have to word it in there, in the vote, that we want to increase our budget.
Well, you
For-
gotta, I don't know, I guess we'd have to
Well, we'd
look
have-
into how you could legally word it, that's,
Good,
Well, that's what I'm
either yes
saying,
or
that-
no.
yeah.
Well, there's a way of doing it, that we still have a regular budget, but we wanna increase it to add more coverage.
Because we would definitely be
So
able
that-
to stay status quo as well, if that's
Yeah.
what the taxpayers wanted, if they wanted to remain with the
Mhm.
current coverage,
Yeah.
we could absolutely do that, we wouldn't back away from that.
I know, but if they vote no on the police budget,
Mhm.
and we can't get the wording, then we've got no money, that's,
Oh, no,
Why
I
can't we do
absolutely
two?
get where you're coming from, I just, that would probably be out of our purview there as to
Right.
how it would be worded, but,
yeah, then, you know, we have to make sure that we have some kind of provision, if we're gonna maintain at least what we got, but what we got right now, I mean, isn't really doing what needs to be done. That's definitely an issue, whether people are willing to, I don't know what the impact on the tax rate would be, what would the tax rate for police go, now, and if we go this budget, what is it, 2 cents now, and then it's gonna be 5 cents, you know, on the grand list?
You don't really wanna know?
Wow, I don't have to know it right this second,
I
but
go
these
look,
are-
I mean, I go look.
I mean,
We don't have to decide, anything tonight anyways, we're
I
gonna
know,
discuss
but,
it.
people are gonna ask that
Right,
question.
not-
Yeah, well, we can get those answers, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need
Now that we got
all
the
that,
numbers. Mm-hmm.
I guess another concern I would have to bring up, and I think this will come up, in the public discussion is, you know, now that what is just the village budget for police?
our budget actually is changing this coming year, too. I can't really discuss it too much, that would be something I would probably.
Now, let's say, what was last year?
Oh,
I mean, million, less than a million?
It's
less
less-
than,
it's
it
less than
was
a
600,000 or
yeah,
800,000
I
or
wanna say it was
something
about
like that.
800 and
Yeah, I thought it was
change.
800 and change.
So we're, you know, if we go with this, then we're putting a big chunk of money into the police fund.
Mhm.
And it makes all kinds of sense to me, I'm not arguing that issue at all, but I think people are gonna ask, well, what say do we have in how things are done?
Oh, and we're, absolutely, I mean, we are, it's cliche, but we are the servants of the people, if
Yeah, but
where,
I mean-
where there are, I mean, if,
But does the town have involvement in the police, I suppose there's a police commission or, you know, with the trustees or somebody, I know that Mark does this now,
Mhm.
I mean, are we gonna be
Adams.
regular, we're gonna have to be involved, I think, if we're gonna build community support for this.
I think that I think for what I've been involved in, even for the last 6 months, I think I've really had some great discussions with the village. And I think that we are going in a place that maybe we haven't been in a while, no offense to anybody previous, but I think they're seeing and
certainly,
understanding what we're asking, where we need to go, even from the public survey. I think these guys really starting to understand the public's got some outcry. And I really think that you guys are taking the right route. And
Mhm.
I mean, there's no question that, having the Swanton Village and Swanton Town having the same police department makes all kinds of sense. Alright, but the way things are, and some people are gonna bring this up, I'm just bringing this to your attention, they're gonna say, well, they're doing what they want, and we just pay the bill, they hand us. So there needs to be some town involvement in the decision-making process. I think if we're really gonna sell this kind of increase, in the budget. It's gonna be.
Well, I think
very-
that's a
very
discussion we need
difficult
to have
do.
with the trustees if we wanna go down that road.
Because I was gonna say.
That's
that-
not a discussion to
Yeah.
have today.
I can't, I mean,
Yeah.
I can't authorize any, I mean,
Right.
basically what it comes down to is the village owns the police department.
That's right.
And it's their police department. If down the line, the town and the village wanted to merge, and that's happened in other communities, I'll say Essex, for instance, Richmond, any of those type of towns, it becomes one entity, and then there's usually input from both sides, the town and the village. But as far as that will go, that would be something, like you said, that would have to be discussed with the trustees and Mr. Belligan.
But I wanna ask you a question from a different perspective. Do you think this is good for this community, and are you gun ho for doing this, taking on all this additional responsibility of covering the jail?
Absolutely, I wouldn't do it if I didn't believe in it. The officers believe in it, but this is, since I came here back in 2017, this is basically what we talk about all the time, and we're always like, we wish we could just become one police department. It makes no sense to have everything disjointed, and I mean, to us, it makes a lot of sense. The town's gonna get, and I don't wanna be disrespectful towards any of the agencies, you're gonna get more customer service by going with us. We know the community, we know the people in it, we know the criminals, we know the residents, we know the business owners, and I think we have a better grasp on what's going on in this community than if you have an agency. Again, I'm not downplaying any other agency, they're all very important, and they all do a good job, but if they're only coming here for emergencies, they're not getting out, they're not getting to know the people in our community. I absolutely think it's more beneficial to have a local police department to handle law enforcement needs. And like I said, I wouldn't support this if I didn't think it was gonna fly, because this is my reputation on the line, and I'm not gonna stick my neck out if I think it's gonna fail. And like I said, there's a lot of support from the officers, and we think about it this way too: the larger our department is, the more we can expand, the more opportunity there is, the more people we can hire, the more jobs we can create in the community. I think it's a win-win all around.
Oh, I agree 100%.
And I think the benefit, it would definitely be a win for the town to do this. And like I said, maybe down the line, it might not be in my career lifetime here or any of ours here, but maybe one day there will be a merger, and just like with the fire department, we just have one entity and everything is, runs smoothly, and it's just, we don't have to worry about, contracts and whatever. It's just the taxpayers paying for a police department doing what we need to do.
So just so I can verify, the bold print is the full price.
That's after the
It's
I'll call it a discount.
So it is after, I just wanna
Yes,
make sure
yeah.
that,
I would think this is
Okay.
below it, would be after, so,
I just wanted to make sure.
yeah.
Okay.
And these are the most recent numbers that our assistant village clerk has given us. So this is pretty much spot on. I think the workman's comp and health insurance, we had to wait a little on that, because that's
Yeah.
like a last minute thing before. This is probably the town knows, I mean, they wait till the last second to drop these things on you. The other thing I did want to say with these contracts, if you look at some of the things, and I know there's gonna be a question about this, you'll see where it says uniforms and vests,
That's
and
what I
that
was
seems
just-
like a lot initially.
I touched on that last time.
Yep, that will go down. It's almost like an initial investment. We obviously have to buy body armor for our officers. I get a grant every year from the federal government to help pay for 50% of those. So after those officers are hired, vests are good for 5 years. It would just be a one-time investment. And the uniforms, obviously we have to outfit our officers with uniforms, gun belts. We just purchased some more firearms. We have a couple of part-time officers we're vetting right now, and so far everything's going good, so we're gonna have to supply them with it. We have to buy a new gun for our chief that's coming on, so some of the equipment we've already gone ahead and purchased, so that wouldn't have to be paid for. But just like with anything, there's an initial startup cost, we'll call it, but after that, those numbers would probably drop down to about $300 a year to replace
Yeah, 'cause you figure $5,700 for this one, at 4 years, you're talking 24,000. That's a significant draw, having to invest and buy that every year. That's what I was
Oh,
questioning
yeah,
last
yeah.
time.
Oh, no, absolutely, and like I said, the vest program that Senator Leahy created saves departments tons of money, and every year I usually budget for 4 or 5 vests, and the federal government pays for 50% of those. We get reimbursed, so that saves us money right there,
So
so
that would drop the final
Yeah.
significantly.
And now, probably, it would actually go back to what we had discussed before when we were looking at those numbers, probably about $300 a year
Yep.
for like uniforms when,
After the first
if
initial.
we get into fights with someone rips our shirt or pants, we gotta replace those, but if that would not be a consistent,
Correct.
Yeah.
number. In the car lease, we would have to add another car, because obviously people always think we have a ton of cars at the police department. We actually don't. One of the cars we have, I ended up getting a grant for it. It's for a federal task force called Operation Stone Garden that we participate in. We cannot use that car for routine patrol. It would be supplanting. So we use it when we work with Border Patrol for specific assignments when we do interdiction. So we are actually like right where we're supposed to be with cars, but if we expand any more, we would have to get an additional car. But that lease cost would be static for 3 years, and then it would disappear, and then we would just have the car to use until it,
We decide to.
yeah, and just we recycled it out, so.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's 20,000 a year for the additional car.
Yes, we're trying to, unfortunately with the car issue right now, I budgeted this coming year, I had to do the, budget recently. We'd probably looking at a Dodge Charger, it's the least expensive cruiser we can buy at $49,000. After that, they all bump to $55,000, $56,000, $57,000, so even for the village, we're gonna have to get a replacement car. We're trying to save money in the budget on all this stuff, because we know every little penny counts. And we don't wanna do that to the taxpayers. If we can save them some money, we wanna do it. I mean, that's,
Are you buying them cars or leasing?
we're leasing, but a lot of times when we lease these cars, basically at the end of the lease, we just buy them straight out for like $1 or something, and
Tax
that's,
it off.
yeah, it's more beneficial than if we buy them themselves.
If the car's 41,000 and you're paying 20,000 for the lease for 1 year?
Well, the lease, it's usually I believe it's a 2-year lease.
Oh, this goes through for the 2 years that you budgeted right here.
This is for, everything here is for 1 year, so that lease, after those 2 years, it's 49,000, but we have to add equipment into it, so it's gonna be a little more than that, but the base car is 49,000, that's the least expensive car we can buy. But when you end up adding a cage, computers, radio alone is $5,000, so these prices can go up significantly, but that's the price we can lease the car for, pay it, and be done with, I'd say probably about 3 years. That's the average out life of the lease. I could double check on that for you, but cars unfortunately are not cheap, and we're having a really hard time finding them these days with the chip issue. And I was going through that today trying to order a car. You know, there might be a delay of a couple of years on some of them trying to get a cruiser. So,
That's
All right, any other
I got
questions?
nothing, thank you, David.
All right,
Thank
thank
you
you very
very
much for all your work, I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Sure
Have a
you'll
good
hear
night.
from us.
Yeah, have a
Thank
good
you.
night. Health officer report. I did see that. Is she present tonight? No. No.
No,
No,
No. Looks like she's been busy. This already.
I think there's continues to be action on our famous
Mm-hmm. I see that.
property.
I can't believe she went in there.
It'd be nice.
Yeah.
Getting closer.
Yep, that's what they say. You guys got anything else for health officer? Alright. Next on the agenda. Discuss tech proposal Zoom meetings with Peter Smith. I think I saw something.
I saw here somewhere.
And it is, quite a bit.
There it is.
I saw 2 trees in there.
Thank you for having me again.
Thank you for coming out.
I just wanted to give you an idea of, unfortunately, we were waited over a month approximately, worked with 4 people, Kathy and I with Dell. We finally got the quote from them December 3rd. And so what I basically did, and I was working with the reseller side, and Kathy was purchasing directly from them as a municipality. So this was actually sent directly to her, and I just included it in the top estimate, so you'd have it, but you would buy it directly yourselves. So if you look at the last 5 pages, that is Dell's quote for the Zoom meeting that includes this computer. So I just kind of sent you some pictures.
Yep.
This is a Dell Micro PC, which is essentially half of this height. And so it's a very small one that we could put behind the TV if needed. And then I provided this picture kind of a standard meeting thing
Monitor.
where I believe where we do it, and this includes a 55-inch TV that I believe you wanted mounted there.
Mhm.
And they have a little management, kind of think of it as like an iPad, but it is wired, so we'd have to run a wire, that would manage your Zoom meetings. And you can kind of look at what the size of this is underneath. Includes speakers
Mhm.
and the webcam on it. The nice thing, unfortunately we had to wait, but the nice thing with us waiting is Dell gave you a really good quote that actually includes 5-year hardware warranty, which standard generally is 3 years. So that's including also the touchscreen that is 55 inches, the micro PC, and then the added unit. So let me just explain kind of what I was thinking of doing, and then you
Go
can
for
see
it.
how that works. So if we put the TV there, we know that the vault's on that other side of the wall. We'd have to, and because of your insurance policy, where we have to make sure everything's secure and keep things kind of out of the public
Yep.
mode, I found this kind of heavy-duty metal case that has a plexiglass on it that
Mhm.
may not exactly be what you want. This is actually $1,000, so there may be something where you guys could build something that will look better in the room as
But
well.
what do we need to secure, the TV itself or just the?
Well, the TV, and then if we put the computer behind it, because it's a
Yeah.
public area. But what I was thinking of doing, if we just had that there,
Yeah.
and then we'd go up to the second floor, and what I was planning on doing is running HDMI cables over to there and actually putting
Mhm.
the computer in there, and
Yeah.
then the other thing I told you about, your basement stops at this back wall.
Yep.
So this entire space here is all crawl space, so it might be easier to go up to the second floor.
Absolutely.
And to keep the computer kind of where easily accessible, because this actually doesn't have an easy access to,
Mhm.
we could put a shelf and the CPU there,
Mhm.
and I'd get what's called a Wi-Fi mesh network to give you guys better access for your Wi-Fi there, and we'd have to put an 8-port switch in, and that's kind of in this list
Mhm.
of the quote.
Mhm.
And I was gonna give you an option of the touchscreen and non-touchscreen, but because of what they offer, I expected this to be $2 or $3 more from Dell. I'm thinking that it's actually a pretty good thing that you guys would buy directly from them. I know there's a lot of wording in here. I don't know if you guys have any questions that you might ask about that.
So I was just gonna
Yes.
say, my question is you, we're gonna come in here and push the on button, and this whole thing's gonna work. We ain't gonna mess with it for half an hour, that's all I want.
Well, so,
Yeah.
yes, so you're gonna have the monitor there, and then what we set up is an HDMI,
Yep.
2 HDMI cables, one that, let's say you had a presenter and they wanted to hook up to be on the TV, but we don't want them to touch your computer.
Yeah.
They would plug into that and they would go to input 2 and they could
Yep.
see that. And then for the public access, they had HDMI out, so that would be another port there.
Mhm.
So it's all right there, and it looks like we do have, I bet, power there. But that was run back when the whole building was open.
Yeah.
So we'll make some more things over there
Mhm.
to allow
And you'll
access to all
label
that.
on, hey fool, this A goes here and B goes here.
Right, HDMI in and out to let folks know about that and
Yeah.
everything.
I just
Um,
want it to work, and I can see something on the wall.
No, I
Yeah.
found this, I don't know,
Mhm.
that's the one concern I have, I don't know if this technically,
Mhm.
it's basically metal with plexiglass, but I wanted it to be,
What's wrong with putting the TV here and putting the hardware locked up in there?
that is fine too, I just
I
didn't
think
know
that's
with the
it.
traffic walking back and forth, it could potentially get hit, cause
I
the
don't think it will.
TV is gonna be quite a
Yeah, it's gonna be
expensive
mounted
part.
and bolted to the wall though, right?
Right, but
Yeah.
it literally could bump, it's LED or whatever, you could bump it and break
Yeah.
the front of it and stuff. So I was
Put
kinda
it up
have,
high enough so we could put it up high enough so it's not in the way.
you
So
can do
it's-
that, right.
yeah.
But I didn't know if you were
Yeah.
concerned about traffic and it getting bumped,
Oh, I don't.
'cause
think
that's
we're
kind of
too
right-
into it, but-
where everyone would be walking. So the other thing you could do also is put the TV like up over there in that corner. So that was another option you had, and we would just do a mount in the corner, but that would, you'd have to adjust how you
Then
do
we
your,
crank our heads to look
everything.
at it, yeah.
right. That is the ideal location, but you have the vault on the other side of the wall.
Well, we could put it over there on that wall too.
How big is that?
55 inch.
It'd be tough fitting in between them windows.
Yeah.
So the biggest concern I have is
I
just
think
traffic
right
and it
there is
getting
realistic,
over
yeah.
time, something
Yeah.
happening to it. Cause all the other places have less traffic and that's a main, if you wanna call it an artery or whatever, a main,
I mean, it's not gonna stick out that far from the wall, is it?
no.
No.
Well, what I was thinking is either we could do this or if someone, I'm not a carpenter, if we had a carpenter that had one that had closing doors, we could open the doors and then we could have an arm on there to actually pull it out closer if you're not having people walking.
Yeah,
So it just gives you more options, but
sure.
that is up to you. And I was actually shocked at how much
I was gonna
this
say, that's $1,000.
Yeah.
metal
I-
cabinet is.
No, I'm not overly concerned about someone hitting it. I mean, we got people walk through your books. I mean, that's the extent of it, you know.
Oh, I'm not saying they do it
Yeah.
on purpose, I'm just saying
No,
accidentally something could happen.
I know. Yeah.
We're gonna center on that wall.
Right,
I
well,
would-
we've gotta
I
go
would
at least-
Put it more over this way.
Or
I mean,
we
we're
gotta-
here, we wanna look over and see it.
Cause 90% of the
Yeah, but
time the
that
door's open, so we have to
Yeah.
start there
Yeah, oh,
and
sure.
go that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And it won't be as big as that, it's just be a 55-inch
Mhm.
diagonal.
Well, just so you can see it. That's
Right.
amazing. You look at that, you can see it.
Will,
Right.
will the picture be better than this?
Yes.
Yes,
It
it's
is like a
actually
TV.
a 4K TV,
Mhm.
very high quality, and the nice thing is, I think St. Albans Town may do it. You could literally cut the screen in half, have your Zoom on one side, and if you want to have your meeting minutes up on the other side,
Mhm.
that you could zoom into it if, to help look at that if you wanted. So it gives you a lot of flexibility on all
Yeah.
that.
So this is your quote here.
Right,
For the-
obviously the bottom part that says the Dell, we would take that out, I just wanted you to see the grand total. Now, one thing they did include in the Dell quote is the sales tax, which obviously
Mm-hmm.
Kathy, which they should have already, cause she's bought all of her computers directly from them. You would remove the 300, but I put it, the amount in there without that tax in
Yeah.
there.
That's all hardware.
Yeah. So this estimate here, that's the total price for everything included? All the
Just
hardware,
all the
your
hardware.
labor,
No,
everything's
My
Your
labor's in
labor.
there, my
Your
labor's in there,
labor's in there?
yes.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
It's like the second and third one from the bottom.
yeah.
So you would, Kathy would buy the bottom thing directly from Dell.
Yeah.
And
But
what-
this is within a few $100 of what the whole thing's gonna cost us,
Right.
top to bottom. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, unfortunately, we had to wait, and I do not know how long you'll have to wait to actually get the hardware.
Oh, come on.
I've got some dentists I do work for. We've probably got about 20 PCs on order. We're hoping to get them by year end, and they order them early November, and we're still waiting.
Well, that's not bad. I thought you were gonna say June.
No,
You
no.
don't know this day and age.
I'm hoping if you guys did
Yeah.
order it,
Mhm.
they may have to make the PC, but if they could order the TV sooner, we could get that mounted and get the cabling, and you could at least utilize that right off and not have to use that as much.
Mhm.
And then we just implement the other part with the,
Mhm.
I think if you saw that picture, that little iPad box where you
Yeah.
start your meeting and it's all
Mhm.
right up there and everything for it.
Yep.
So,
And this is something we should be able to use the ARPA funds for, right? I should be
I
absolutely,
think it should
no reason
qualify.
why we
I believe
can't,
it
so,
That's Brian's job to get that done.
yeah.
But qualify the ARPA.
I am. I'm all for this, I don't know what you guys thought.
I agree, I'm all.
I've said this for
I'll
months,
make a
I was
motion
done with
that
this soon.
we,
Yeah.
go with this contract
Yeah.
up to 10,000, just in case there's some
There you go.
unexpected
Okay.
expenses.
sure.
And that, the town administrator, get this funded through the ARPA money, whatever the hell it's called.
That was a motion, Earl?
Something like
You made a
that.
motion. All right, can I get a second on that?
I'll second that.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
One more quick question,
Okay.
just to confirm.
Yeah.
Are we not doing, we're just doing a wall mount for the TV? Do you
Yeah.
want it on an arm that you can pull out some, or you just want it kind of like a picture frame?
Say probably armed, just in case we needed to move it or something.
Little tilt and all that, okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, so, because of the, at the golf course, we put an outdoor TV in that we thought, oh, we'll put it under the eave,
Yeah.
and it'll be fine. A standard indoor TV, and you couldn't see it at all, so we had to buy
Yeah.
one, but it's definitely dark enough here where I think it'll be fine with the
Yeah.
one they're providing, so.
Okay.
Okay, I'll talk to
Thank you for all
Kathy
your
and
work on that.
we'll get
Okay.
that, ordered up and everything.
Can't wait to have it work.
Thank you.
Yes, and, we'll get some more additional power outlets and everything for you, we'll double check that too.
Perfect.
All right, you have a
All
good night.
right, thank you. Have a good night.
Just before we move on to the next subject,
Yeah.
I think we ought to see what, I kinda agree with this idea that we ought to have some protection around it,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe that, you know, we probably could find somebody that could make us something
Like a-
halfway
Yep.
decent, you know, so we
Like a
could invest.
cabin.
Mm-hmm. But
Yes.
cabinet, put it in.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
And you'd like doors on it?
Well,
Probably.
I would think doors might be better than glass, because glass could get broken.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, just open and close it as needed,
Yeah.
you know?
I
That
will-
way, we, you know, we
You
can
can make it.
protect it, and, I think it's worth what
Yeah.
we're doing, and we can
I
decide
don't
whether
think
we
he needs
wanna
much
spend
stuff.
that
I think
money.
just a
Right.
frame around it would
Yeah,
be just
I
fine.
can
Nothing's
ask
get around.
around,
Yeah.
see what people say, okay.
Maybe you could find something online too, that, you
Might.
know, might be able to.
I know a good
Yeah.
carpenter.
If you go
Yeah.
online, you're gonna
No,
have
busy
to get it
carpenter.
from China, and that's gonna
Yeah.
take forever, so you might as well have
Yeah.
somebody build it.
Mm-hmm. All right, we all good on that, guys?
Yes.
Discuss the recreation budget, 2022 proposal. Number 9. Good evening, Betsy.
Early and early.
It's that time of year.
Oh,
Wow.
it sure is. All right.
I don't know if I can find the page, we'll be all set. I went from 1 to 19, I don't know why.
Before Betsy gets started, I'm just gonna recuse myself from the conversation as I am an employee of the department.
A very
Okay.
good employee, I must say. Thank you, Nicole, for all your work.
Yeah,
All right, so
lots of paperwork.
lots of paper. Yeah, some of that stuff is not even part of the budget. It just got
I couldn't understand why there was a chain email connected to it.
Yes, I was like.
well.
We're
No,
talking snowboards and
so
budgets and.
I emailed the whole board and then Kathy and
Yeah.
the town, and then all of a sudden one of the board members decided he was going to reply all, because normally it's just the board.
Some do
So
that.
I was
We
like,
have that.
oh geez. So yeah, we are working on buying a snow blower,
Perfect,
And getting the tractor fixed.
yeah.
right? All
I'll
right.
let you know when we get some sidewalks in done.
Yeah. Well,
That's a
We
great
gotta-
idea. Put an attachment on the front of there.
There you go.
Oh, thank you.
So we have to find somebody to do that first.
yeah, we have to. We're
I'm not
looking.
doing
we're,
that.
we're looking to hire someone. So if anybody is interested in athletic director and field maintenance position, we have an opening at the rec. So feel free to contact us.
Spare time, yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah,
And we're
cut it
also
out.
looking for part-time help to support our programs and athletic department too.
Alright.
All right. So we had a good year, considering. I think we really met the needs of the community, really expanded on our programming. Our rec department, rec fields were, booming with activities and programs, educational, gardening, I mean, you name it, it was happening there. Our athletic numbers this year were actually much better, because we could actually play. We have basketball just started on Saturday, and our numbers are phenomenal.
Mhm.
Our soccer numbers were phenomenal. Our Little League numbers not as great, but I think they'll get there next
Mhm.
year, once we start opening up a little more. Summer camps were great. We're starting cooking programs too. A lot of outdoor recreation, kayaks. Snowshoes will be available when we get some snow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Or
Couple more weeks, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. So, good years.
Yeah.
Good year. And we're looking for another great year. Our budget really didn't increase that much this year. Our ask to the town, anticipated town appropriations, because we don't really know what our total rollover will be, because we won't balance out to the end of December. But we did run a rough, what we have left for bills and any spending that we're going to do in the next few weeks. And we thought it would be a good rough 44K rollover, so that would bring us to 125,132 as an ask for the town appropriations. We did see a great revenue increase in our field hockey programs this year, so that was exciting to see. We do have some interest in maybe some fundamental football programs that we can add, so we're looking to add more programs, and we're looking for a lot of input and, from the community too, which we've received a ton. Nicole's out in the community and has her hands in everything, so, she reports back to us about a lot of opportunities that the community wants, a lot of collaborations going on in the community, with the after-school program, the library, the chamber, so it's been great.
But obviously space is still,
Yep,
a
and
big
we're
priority.
gonna tap into that and when we hit on that. Space is an issue, so one thing that I can say that, we are going to, hire a consultant an engineer to look in that back parking lot because it was considered a wetland, but we don't really think it is, so we're gonna actually, take some of our money market, funds and hire, I think it's about $2,000, I think we got an estimate for, to hire someone to look back there to really dig in to see where if there is wetlands, if there is,
Yeah,
where are
just-
they,
yep.
what room do we
Map
have?
it out.
And then, not only our athletic programs are expanding, so we need more space for fields, soccer. We don't even have T-ball fields. I'd love to have a T-ball field for our kids, so whether that's the rec or 4th Street, I don't know, but I think we need space for our littles to recreate also.
Betsy, your appropriations and your totals for your salaries, does that cover the new person that you wanna hire as well? Because that's covering that?
Yeah,
Okay.
because the numbers, our payroll didn't even have a full year. Like, he wasn't here even a full year. And that's with even our summer staff, we still have some room to, we still have money left in our payroll budget.
Well, this year you budgeted for a full year employee, that's in that budget here.
Yep, and summer staff,
Yeah, and some numbers, even though you didn't use all the money last year.
right.
Actual bottom dollar.
Well, what is the actual increase in your budget?
So, I can tell you. I think it's only
Well, so don't lie,
19,
but
isn't it?
19,000,
Total all
yeah.
funds.
106 last year. and
total
that's-
recreation expenditures.
It's very hard to read. That bold is like really.
Yeah,
What, oh,
I'm looking
Yeah.
for the bottom line, total number. That's what I'm trying to figure out here.
so if you look on, so it won't really, so the town appropriations is on page, 2 of 2.
The last
Okay.
page. Oh, that's 3 of 2. 2 of 2.
And then,
Okay.
so it's the one, so basically it's that one where it says town appropriations, 164, 132.
Yeah.
But then
I
you're
thought you-
minus off the
wait a minute.
rollover.
I'm on the wrong page. What page you say it was on? 2 of 2?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Apparently not in order. That's why I can't find
It's
it.
not 169.
Okay.
No, it's a 4.
It is a
Ours is on
I think
page
it's-
30.
That's hard
Oh,
to
no,
see.
you're right, it's 169 because then we have the 5,000 capital reserve that we put in every year.
Yeah.
So it's 169, 132, and then we'll have that,
Okay. Now I
rollover.
see it down here. Okay.
which will bring us
Last
to,
year's
Yeah.
budget was this much.
In last year's 2020 budget was 150,995.
150, yeah,
Yeah.
160, because you're gonna go underneath that 5,000 capital reserve,
Okay, so this year,
160,
so this
Okay.
year, then it's up 9,000.
right, and then
Yeah.
the year before 2020 was 120, I think, and then
Okay.
150.
But after their amount they can contribute to what they need to raise, which is their carryover, it's actually less, they're not looking for that number.
Right, I understand that, but
And last year it wasn't that number either, it was 106. That was what they needed to work with.
So what's the actual number you're asking the voters for?
Well, anticipated, because like I said, we don't really know what our rollover will be,
Mhm.
125,
Give or take.
125,132,
Okay. And what did we ask the voters for last year?
106,
you had
106.
a higher rollover the year before or something?
yeah.
So you're
Oh, yeah,
anticipating to
'cause
ask for
COVID, we
100.
couldn't do anything,
Okay,
yeah,
alright, that explains that.
You're anticipating to ask for 125,000 this year.
Yeah.
So So you're talking $15,000 in roughly ballpark increase.
Yeah, and most of
Yeah.
it's probably, insurance, FICA.
So I gotta ask you a question. So
Sure.
you got roughly $44,000 rollover money.
Mhm.
So how come you're asking for $15,000 increase?
Well, that's just to cover our expenses for like FICA and all that stuff. Like the
So where will the
insurance went
rollover
up.
money go, is what I'm asking.
So the rollover money is just basically funds that like we have some like the snow blower kind of expenses, and then just for programming that we didn't anticipate, like extra programming that we're gonna have, any like extra equipment or something that we don't wanna have to ask the taxpayers for. Like we pretty much kept our budget basically the same. And then we'll use that money for any extra things that we wanna spend money on.
Well, I guess,
Like I have a whole list of things that, like we need a new pitching machine, two pitches, we need a new fence. So that, all that money will go towards that.
all right, look, I think a more appropriate question, just so the public understands this, if you didn't have that rollover, you would be asking for an additional 44,000.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's being used for what you're proposing
Right.
in your budget. It's
Right.
not really new stuff, you're not going out and,
No,
you know, I might bring it to.
Well, when you say rollover money, I think extra money, that's the way I look at it. It's extra money at the end of the year you have left in your budget. So that's the way I look at it.
well, and we
Yeah.
always have extra money left over in our budget. Anybody, really.
Yeah.
You can't really function without
Yeah.
extra
No,
funds.
I get it, yeah. It's my job to ask that question though.
Of course.
Betsy,
Yeah.
out of that 44,000, where is the biggest contributor that 44 came from? I mean, 44 is almost a quarter of your budget, so that tells me you didn't spend somewhere. Where did you not spend?
I'm not really sure
I
where.
don't know, it sounds like
I'm-
it was a labor issue for
Well,
one.
we didn't have a full-time, full
Oh.
staff,
Yep.
so that's a big chunk of it.
Mhm.
So we didn't, like,
Yeah.
that's almost probably $25,000 right there. Actually, probably more like, yeah, 'cause he was only there for, he probably was 18,000. So yeah, that's almost $30,000 right there.
Mhm.
So the $10,000 was probably just programming that we didn't have. Gymnastics we didn't have. Like I said, baseball and softball wasn't a huge hit this year.
I should wonder if baseball and softball, if it's gonna be less and less every year because of all the other activities that kids are offered to play now and do. Me,
Isn't this the same budget you present? Oh, is it
Well,
hard,
I
yours
put
hard to
mine-
read?
I do
You
mine
probably-
into a spreadsheet.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So I don't actually, like, we have a bookkeeper that volunteers to do our budget.
For me, all the final numbers are all just
Smushed together.
all the bold. Is it just my eyes, or
I can go through and write them larger if you'd like.
I know my eyes ain't the best, but
No,
I have to look twice
even
on
with
it.
my
Yeah.
glasses on, they do look like this 160 could be a 90. It's not, but
So we're looking at, what, 10-12% increase in the budget? Roughly.
it was like 9,000, I think we said. So
I thought I said 15, thought you were at 15.
from
You're
last
100
year.
105,000 last year, you asked. And
106,000.
No, 100.
106 last year, and what we asked, the actual
125.
ask, 125, so,
Oh, right, because we had a bigger rollover.
yeah. Yeah, so $19,000 increase in the budget. So that's 15%, somewhere in there, ballpark, quick guess.
Now, when you talk about percentages, you think
Mhm.
it's better that we, when we do put our budget together into the town book, that we do the percentage? I know that
Well, the
a
stuff
few
we
of our
look
rec
at,
board
that's the way we
members
look
had
at it, the
said that
percentage, you know.
people would like to know how much of a percentage increase is in our
Mhm.
budget versus dollar amount. And that's
It comes
how,
out.
is that how you present it to the taxpayers?
Well,
Yeah, I guess we do present
You
it.
ask
I-
that question, it's
yeah,
nice to have that
how much
answer.
percent, you know?
The other thing that always comes into play is, the impact on the tax rate.
Okay.
So if we increase it,
Yeah.
what you're talking about is gonna be, pretty small on the overall tax rate. But, that's what people, wanna know, is it gonna be $100 more in taxes this year, or is it gonna be 50?
Mhm.
That's one part of it.
Well, I said it before, 15,000 here, 15,000 there, yeah, it's up fast, you know?
But, it's understandable if you had a sizable rollover the year before because COVID shut down a lot of your programs, so you didn't spend that money. We can't expect you to have that same kind of rollover this year. So we know there's gonna be some impact on the tax rate. That should have been anticipated.
Did you
Right.
actually tell us what the cause of the increase was?
Oh, look, Kathy's up.
It's, the increase is like 0.003.
To the taxpayer.
Like 0.003 of a cent
Oh.
per thousand on taxes.
Yeah.
So on a $255,000 home, it's $7. And I did do the police one, it's $178.50
Yeah.
increase. On a $255, $170.50. Yeah, for that police budget.
Anybody, anything else for the rec? Yeah, okay.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, think we're good. All right. Thanks, Betsy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, don't get tangled up in there.
Oh, we got next up here.
We have no Zoom connection if they can, but they still should be able to come in through here.
Oh,
People are calling in and saying there's no Zoom. And when I left before, I tried logging on and also called the number. When I called the number, it stated that the meeting had not started. So, I don't know.
How
the
soon can we
meeting
get that
number
new system?
change?
Yeah, they come
No,
out here.
no, it's still the same.
We're on,
Our
right?
doors are open.
Yeah.
Hopefully the action we took tonight will
That's right.
rectify this issue once.
Oh, I
and
hope
for
so.
all.
I'm just done with it. Next is the Missisquoi Valley Rescue budget. How are we
Welcome.
doing?
Good.
Page 18.
So then you're gonna let us beat her up and not you tonight, or?
It's my turn.
Yes,
So
but
for-
if you wanna ask any questions.
Okay.
So just so people know, I'm Lori Rossi, I'm the accountant. I ran with Rescue.
Oh, so they just stick the accounting out
Many-
front. They
Oh,
send
yeah,
that back.
exactly.
Now I see what's going on.
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Many, many years ago, I ran on the rescue squad, but when we lived back up here, so.
Boy, when you take a look at these pages going over.
Numbers. Oh, yeah.
So nowhere to use. Anybody have any questions, or do you just want me to kind of jump in and?
I'm still digging, but there we go. I found it. I looked it over yesterday when we got it, but I don't think I had basically.
So we're basically, the bottom line is
That's what we're looking at.
we're going down about $4,000. So last year we asked for 200,896. This year we're asking for 196,628 from Swanton.
I don't know if I see that.
So that's on,
The second page?
well, for me it's the third page. I don't know how yours are going.
No, one more page, there we go. We'll get there
It's
eventually.
a tiny little page of information.
All right. So they're asking this year for,
196,628.
all right, and it was
And it
200,000
was
change last year.
200,896 last year.
Can't complain about that. We can't beat you up on that.
How many calls did you guys get last year?
We are up to, at this time, 1,606 calls. This is our busiest year so far.
That's up to date.
Wow.
Wow.
Yes. last year was 50.
We're over 300 up from
What's
last
that,
year.
4 calls a day?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Staffing, are you guys having trouble staffing, or are you getting better?
Initially, we did,
Yeah.
but what happened with COVID is our people that were going through classes, everything got pushed aside, so we couldn't get them certified. The state did make some changes that we could run provisionals, and that helped, and now the classes are resuming, people are getting tested, and, we're holding, we got 25 employees,
Oh, good.
and we've got
Wow.
other people that are applying, so.
That's
We're
good.
able to staff 2 trucks, 5 days a week. And then on the weekends, we opened it up just a couple months ago to run a second truck midday, where we're our busiest from, 10 to 6, 10 to 6, Saturdays and Sundays, so.
Yeah.
And we have 3 trucks, so, and a lot of times during the weekday, we've been running, especially lately,
Last week,
three
yeah.
trucks, so.
That's good.
At least
You've been doing a lot of assist calls. Of course, bad habit from my record days. I still have that scanner side of my easy chair, and I noticed you guys have been going over to Albert a lot.
We have been covering a lot lately.
Of
We've
Alberg
been
and
covering Albert, we've been covering
Fairfield.
St. Albans.
Yeah, I've been hearing that a lot. Is that unusual, or is that? When I say it, when I ask if that's unusual, are you seeing more of that this year, I guess, as well?
Yes, we're covering a lot more, especially St. Albans territory.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
And Alberg is doing better though, because they're.
It's hit or miss.
What, are they
Yeah.
understaffed over there? That's
They're
what
They're
still,
working on it.
they're volunteer, so
that's what I
they're,
suspect.
Yeah.
so that's, and they don't have anybody during the day, so
Wow.
we've been covering a lot of that. But yeah, we've been going all over.
Yeah.
We've responded as far as.
We've gone to Berkshire, North Europe.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
Very.
Is that just because there's no one that can respond, so they get where they can, wow.
nobody to cover the trucks.
Yeah,
So, and that's due to COVID. A
Mhm.
lot of that has to do
Yeah.
with COVID and just not having the people to do it. We've been doing a lot of long distance transports.
Yeah, I hear you going down to the medical center.
Yeah, but we've been going as far as Brattleboro, Rutland, and in those
That's
areas,
good.
so we've been doing
Okay.
transports. Yeah, we've been right out there.
So
Busy.
with all of that, you'll definitely see that the payroll costs have increased. Because with all of the, all the calls, with all the long distance, there's these extra. And as much as, I mean, they're doing an awesome job getting and people, but one of the reasons is they're offering decent pay.
Yep.
And then, and really these days, that's necessary, and it's necessary for that, to continue. So thankfully, one of the reasons why we're able to ask for less is because the billing is continuing to increase. So
Yeah.
you will see there's a pretty substantial increase in payroll that we're estimating for next year, because we don't see this stopping, but the billing is keeping up with that. So,
That's great.
yes, it is.
Well, I personally want to take my hat off to you folks, because I had put my scanner away when I retired, and I just took it out of retirement a month ago, and I'm just totally amazed at the work that you folks are doing in the community. And I want to personally thank you. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I timed you the other night. You went to a accident on St. Albans Road, and you were
Oh,
7
man.
minutes from the time you were dispatched, and you were on the scene. I was very, very impressed with that.
That's got too much time on his hands, apparently. You got another committee for ad doing?
Yeah, I think they deserve a big round of applause.
Absolutely. Thank you folks for all you do.
But just to touch on that, I think the community outreach stuff you guys are doing, involved with the community, I think is important. They see it and they talk about it, so at least from the chamber, we thank you for being involved in stuff that we do there in the town. I think it's key for the community to see you fire and police as well, so again, thank you for that part of it as well. Makes it easier for the voters to yay or nay, but yay it when they see you guys doing them things that you support what they're doing, so, yeah.
I do have one question, because I know we received one, when you're sending out the flyers, you know, for the $50 a year. You getting good response back on that?
Yep, we get around, this year we're about 25,000.
Okay. It's actually.
I mean, how do you,
Yeah.
you know, like I said to my wife, how do you say no to that?
Yeah,
Exactly.
You know, but I'm just curious.
I think this year was better than most
Yeah.
for getting the
And I
subscription.
would think that has a lot to do with the COVID.
Good money.
I would
Yeah.
think so.
People say, you know, we might need them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much,
I have
folks.
2 kids and a husband.
Anything else for the rescue?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Oh, question, Ed?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
25,000 or whatever the number was. How many households?
Oh, that's a good question. How many, what is it
I
a
have it
house?
on a spreadsheet at the station, I can get that, I don't have it off the top of my head though.
Roughly.
Divide 50 by 225,000,
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
Well, anyway, I'd like to see that abolished.
Yeah,
I think it's the poor people who really need the most.
yeah.
If you and I are, most of us in this room, I'm sure we could say,
It's 500.
we've got $50,
Right.
we can pay it. We can pay the fees, or we have insurance that'll help us pay the fees. It's the real poor people who are nervous over that.
Yeah.
And there are people in this community that lose $50.
Yeah.
And some businesses, the $75 or whatever it is, would make a dent in their weekly income, I'm sure.
It is something that they can
my-
do, they don't have to do it.
I know they don't have to,
Correct.
that's right. But the reason why I say this is I go back to 20 years ago or so. Earl was there, I was there, I think Brian was there, and I forgot who else, Dick Thompson. And that's when you were going through financial crises. Highgate was trying to break away and the whole thing. And the word was, we can't train and raise money. So we said, okay, you train, we'll raise the money. That's important to have people who are up on their medicine. And we said, you do the training, we'll raise the money on our taxes. That way everybody pays their fair share. We went off that way, and we continued. And they had other issues that they were concerned with at the time. There was some member of the organization who was a bookkeeper, and some question was asked, and they said, oh, she took bookkeeping in high school, but she's not sure this is too complicated. There was some of that too. And there have been other instances, I'm sure, with people who were not qualified to follow that through. But I think that the training is the most important part that they can do. And I know that most of them are volunteers in there. So I would rather see that done away with and added into whatever the amount is needed. And we'll do it in our taxes, we'll have time to train, and everybody will pay their fair share. Whether you're poor or whether you're comfortable, everybody's gonna pay their fair share. That's very simple, that's all.
But if you're not a taxpayer, this is a way for them to contribute.
Pardon?
If they're not a taxpayer, this subscription is a way for them to contribute.
Let's close out, if they're not a taxpayer, it goes through their taxes one way or another. Because if you're the landlord, you're gonna figure that into your rent, aren't
But if I'm not the landlord,
you? Pardon?
it's just a way to give them to the rescue. I would hate to see
It
that
is
go.
voluntary. You
Yeah.
do not have, you
And we
don't have
never,
to do it.
we do not, if somebody can't pay.
You don't deny.
We never,
I realize
we
that.
never
I
bill
realize
them. You know, that's not, it is definitely much more of a donation rather than anything
And it's
else.
mostly the people that can afford it are the ones that are doing it. They're the ones that have insurance, that may have a deductible on their insurance. So anything that is not paid by their insurance, the $50 donation covers everything. So if you have, say, a balance of $300, you don't have to pay that $300. Your $50 has covered that. So you're seeing people with insurance more than people without insurance that are doing the subscription. The people that are on the poorer side, they've got Medicaid, they've got Medicare or whatever it is. So, and if they can't pay, they don't. And that's the way it always has been. It is an option. You don't have to pay. If you want to.
In reality, you're probably losing money by doing that.
Sure.
If you think about, if you could think of some of our calls that we get nothing.
Yeah, but I mean, if there was a $300
Oh,
deductible,
absolutely,
you're
absolutely,
you're losing that income.
Well,
absolutely.
but then if you've got, 4 other people who've paid their $50 and they don't have a call, I think it all,
Washes
my
out.
guess is that it evens out. I would say that, to your point, I think that the only person that it would somewhat be to the detriment of is somebody who doesn't have the means to pay, but feels like they should. Because I don't think that the mailing or the wording of it is particularly heavy-handed in any way, shape, or form, nor, and this is something that we've always been keenly aware of, at a time when our billings, when it was a much different way of billing people, we were always really conscious of, we will never go after somebody.
Right.
We won't even send, a notice, because that's the last thing we want our,
And I agree with,
thing
I
to be
agree with you.
in
I'm
the
not-
community of whatever. But I see your point, because to me, $50, it's a nice donation to the thing, and it might save me $250 if I have a call. But to somebody else who may feel like they want to and can't afford it.
I'd like to see you have the time to train, do what you need to do with that, and then we'll pay if you're doing business. That's what my only point. That's what we said we do 20 years ago.
That's,
I think
20
we
years
should.
ago, things have changed in 20 years. We have time enough to train. We don't need to.
There isn't a lot of, to your point, I think 20 years ago when we were talking about it, I mean, that's about the time when my husband and I were here. There was a lot more fundraising having to go on, and not so much the subscription, but there was a lot of other stuff, and getting this, the taxes and stuff has made a huge difference. And I think at this point we see the subscription as more of a way for people in the community to support us as more of a donation.
And it's a donation, it's a tax write-off.
Yeah, but there is a benefit to it.
Absolutely.
So it's not really a donation or fundraising. Somebody, has, is basically an insurance policy.
Exactly,
But
exactly,
not everybody has that option.
correct.
Unless and so I guess to some extent, I can see what Ed is saying, that maybe you ought to now that, and I don't know, I got no budget, but it doesn't, one of the things that would be nice in here if it clearly stated what percentage of your actual operating budget comes from tax dollars and what percentage comes from billing. Really clear, make that very clear so people understand that.
We can, when I submit the report
Yeah.
for the thing,
Yeah.
I can easily do a percentage of.
Fair enough. Anything else for the rescue? All right. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Len.
Have a good night, guys. And now it's new town administrator.
Wow.
Welcome, Mr. Brian Savage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My 4th day on the job.
Yeah, he came back.
Have a good night.
So-
Hey, get back after lunch.
So, trustee meeting, I got keys to the building.
Yep.
Hey.
He's jealous.
Behave.
Night, Lynn.
So, I'm enjoying it very much.
Well, good.
Good.
Well, welcome. Glad to have you.
You're welcome, and good for you.
Right. Thank you.
All right. Appoint new town administrator as deputy zoning administrator. That's postponed, David? Okay. I guess I crossed off that. I crossed off the wrong one. That's my mistake. So are we appointing the Brownsfield committee one?
Yeah,
Okay.
I currently sit on that. That meets a few times a year
Okay.
to discuss, it's led by Greta Brunswick at the Regional Planning Commission. There's a committee of probably about 10 people, and they go over the different projects that she presents to award funds to clean up brownfield.
Night, Ed.
I know.
All right, so we need to make a motion to appoint.
Yeah, there's no
Brian.
form to fill out, it's
Okay.
just a motion.
I'll entertain a motion to appoint Brian as our,
Brownfield Committee.
Brownfield Committee rep.
I'll make that. I'll second that.
Second?
Yep.
Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Right?
Opposed, ayes have it. We also need to appoint Mr. Savage as our local emergency management coordinator.
Yeah, this is a new position. There's kind of an explanation on the next page where they get rid of the old emergency committee for the village and the town and combined, kind of regionalized it. And they're asking
Last page.
for both a director, which is what Reggie would be appointed as, and also a backup, which is the suggestion for Brian.
Okay.
Brian, you're appointed to every position in this town or that nobody else wants.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know what, I, just for the sake of it, I mean, is there anybody, would there be somebody else interested in the community doing this? Has that question been asked? Or does it have to be a town employee?
I would say it probably have to be somebody of
Right.
an authority to do
Yeah,
that
and
position.
Reggie
It's
said
pretty
Brian's a
important.
good choice for the backup because of his long
Knowledge.
experience with the fire department.
Yeah.
Part of this job is to also, as the backup or the coordinator, is to coordinate with the other emergency services in the town, so the police, the rescue, and the fire, so, and I've worked with them all in the past, so.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good
I think it's
choice.
a good fit.
But, no, and I don't mind doing, it's not something that gets called on a lot,
Okay.
fortunately. But we never know.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we never
Never know.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to appoint Brian as the emergency management coordinator.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Second on that. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you again, Brian. And then we also need to appoint Mr. Reg Bellevue as the local emergency management director.
I'll make that
Entertain a motion on that.
I'll make that motion.
All right, get a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Old Town Business, ARPA update.
Yeah, not much happening there, no new developments, so we're still waiting. Hopefully they'll come up with rules of some sort
Okay.
on how we can spend money.
Yeah, I think it's just important that we continue to ask the question and get an understanding because I know we got time, but there are projects and things I think that we can really start looking
Did one
at.
tonight.
Yep.
Exactly, so I think it's important.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of ask and I think we wanna have some kind of informational meeting to put out there what we know.
Yeah.
At this time, we just don't know a lot.
Alrighty. B, Ursa grant update, David?
Well,
Anything on that?
Joel and Betsy may want to address that.
Okay.
But also, they did approve, the towns that can apply for the grant. Swanton's one of them,
Okay.
but there are about 100 that they
Yep.
approved, and there's not enough money for everybody. But I think the Memorial Valley Rail Trail probably has a good chance because of its regional importance
Yeah.
and so forth.
I'll let Joel talk on it then.
Yeah, real quick on that.
Sir.
The submission was made on the 26th.
Mhm.
We talked about it at the last meeting. Pretty extensive submission, but it was made on the 26th. Deadline was the 29th, so it's good that we got the thing in a couple days early. Looks like everything that we needed did get submitted. Some people that were submitted for these didn't get the environmental review page done, but we were able to get ours in time. That's around $125,000 is what we're looking for, is to pave a parking lot, put a small pavilion, a couple pads there, one for some portalettes, one for a bike stand, etc. So there is a meeting this month. I think it's the 17th. They want someone to dial in case they have any questions and stuff. But I think we got a real strong submission. The one thing is it is submitted by the town of Swanton. And so when Peter Cross was doing some work for us, we told him the client was town of Swanton. If you do get the bill, let us know, because we've got Franklin County Industrial Development Corps is gonna help with that, and also SEP. So
Yeah.
if you do see the bill, just let us know, and we'll see if we can work that all out.
Yeah.
So I think we got a real strong case,
Mhm.
putting a parking lot at the end of that is a big thing for the state, not just for Swanton, so.
Yep, sounds good.
It's looking good.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Joel. Your passive update, David? What's that?
Yeah, all of the, issues that passive, the inspector found, in
Oh,
the
yeah.
buildings, have been addressed except for the basement. And I
Okay.
talked to, the passive rep who wanted to get that all closed out, as a finished project and explain that situation, the cost, alone for the, repointing, what that would be.
Mhm.
The fact that we had an engineer look at the outside wall and give an estimate, and that's quite a bit more than what the basement inside is gonna cost. And, he originally, the original inspector, took another job in Texas, so he's not around, but
Okay.
Larry Smith, if you remember a few years ago, he and, came up and, for the first time, it sold the town on going with passive.
Mhm.
And I talked to him and explained all that, and he lowered it from a medium priority to a low priority. So he said it's not something they would hold against the town if we
Right,
apply
that's
for
good.
more grants and this.
Yeah.
So,
Well, their plan is
passive.
like February timeframe to repoint the basement, so.
Yeah, and the grant that I wrote for the highway department for the new steamer is in the works.
Yeah,
And
can you
that
follow
looks-
up on that too? 'Cause you,
Yeah,
'cause they
I-
told us like a month ago it was in work, so.
Yeah, and it still is. It takes them time to go through all the applications they got. And the last I heard was that we have a pretty good chance because of the fact that their inspector condemned the old one.
Yeah,
And Kevin said they got rid of that one.
yeah.
And by doing that, we
Mhm.
kind of made the town get a new one.
Mhm.
So if, once we get word it's approved, that'll pay for half.
Mhm.
Up to 4,500, I think.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. All right.
yeah, we'll
Okay.
keep it on top of that.
All right, and I'll just throw it in here real quick, we did, Kevin order that cart last week that the insurance wanted us to have for that shop saw, so.
Yeah.
Which I still don't agree on, but we just keep it quiet, so. So that was the last thing. All right, Fourth Street, that's you, sir,
It's,
or all of you.
And the rest, yeah.
Yeah.
and the rec department too. So what originally we talked about was coming here and discussing the possible locations for the rec community center. You know, it's a large facility.
Yep.
Discussion whether it should go on First Street, whether it should go down to the rec, whether it should go somewhere else, as Earl had indicated. So I went and, with Betsy being co-chair and also rec department, went to the rec department on the 23rd of November, had a discussion with them, and the rec department is very interested in having the facility somewhere on their property.
Mhm.
To me, that probably makes the most sense, because there's not an open area closer to the village center right now where it could go. But to put it there, they're already bursting at the seams.
Mhm.
So what we talked about was, what could we do with the 4th Street property? And that could be like a T-ball field or two,
Mhm.
could be like a U8 soccer, a couple of fields. We already talked about some parking there, a pavilion, outdoor, weight training type thing. Or outdoor fitness center, I guess is probably a better term for it. So, I think with the majority of the board, can't speak for anybody on the board, that, you know, looking at it in the rec center area is probably the best bet. One thing we discussed that night was the whole issue of wetlands, and they're taking steps now. It'll be in the spring, so it's gonna be a while. Take a look at what the wetlands are, and then how can some fields maybe be moved, where would the best place for the building go, et cetera. So that's gonna be into 2022 at some point. So, you know, what I'm wondering from a 4th Street committee standpoint, because we said we'd wind down at the end of this year and give you a report, we gave you the preliminary report. What is our next step with the board? What we'd like to see, I think, and is a commitment from the board that maybe that 4th Street property could go to the rec department. and use it for the fields to balance out what they might do for rec or community center. And come to you with a plan, a layout of that area, and get some commitment of what we're gonna do with the Fourth Street, because I mean, that's where we started, you know, basically 10 months ago. It's been a great process of trying to figure out what's needed. And I think everyone on the board appreciates the rec department and how much is going on with the rec department and trying to help the rec department. So, kind of at a little bit of a pause here on what do we do next. I think it's great to try to get some master layout, which you've been talking about for a while. But I think in discussions with the rec department is we can lay some of that stuff out. I can make to scale drawings of the fields, and we can sit there and we talked about, we could go through several iterations till finally one, the light comes on and says, this is what we think is the best layout, and come back and say, here's what we want to do, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever. But part of it is a commitment of the Fourth Street property. And from a Fourth Street committee representative, I'd like to see the board make a decision, maybe January, whenever you're ready, to say, that's what we're willing to do with that property, and whether or not there's any funding at all that could help get it started. I know we've already talked the rec budget, not we, but the rec department has talked the rec budget tonight. But as a committee member, I'd like to try to see a few dollars given to start some of the work there for 2022 if possible, if that commitment's there.
Do you have a specific dollar amount in mind?
What we had put in the budget for a kind of a phase one was something in the 60,000 range, of which some of that money was to do the brownfields, which again, I think that should come from a separate department, that where the contamination happened, 10 or 12,000. That's for you.
All the same taxpayers, so.
Yeah.
Unless we can find the money somewhere. Yeah.
General highway, slightly different group, but
Wow,
that's for you guys to decide. I just gonna give you
I
my-
know where it's coming from.
I sat on that side of the table, and I was a
Yeah.
highway guy,
Yeah.
you know, but if there was extra money there, then that's, you know, maybe 10, 12,000. I don't know where we've gotten with that, and it sounds like,
I don't know either.
our new town administrator might be, taking this one on as the brownfields guy, but,
Yeah,
you know,
we need to do an update on that and find out what it actually is gonna cost us to fill.
what it's
take
gonna
care of
cost
that.
us, the extent of the
Yeah.
contamination. It's been long enough, it may not even be an issue right
It may
now.
not
We
be.
just
It's
don't
been-
know that.
I couldn't tell you how many years it's been since it was tested.
That report was 2006,
2006.
15 years ago.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of the update and.
One of the things that we did want out of this was something to bring before the voters at the town meeting time. Your proposal to, transfer that land to the rec department for recreational uses, that could be part of that proposal that we could bring before, and then, you know, any kind of dollar amount to get that process started. This is specific to Fourth Street. You know, the other things that, you know, that's down the road, but right now, you know, my understanding, my take on this whole thing, when we started way back in April or whenever it was, that we would bring something before the voters. Now, so what you're saying is your Fourth Street Committee and the Rec Committee would like to see something at least along the lines of transferring that property there and beginning some funding to start doing some work. Was that something that you'd be willing to, you know, is that what you'd like to see? I mean, we don't have the authority really, I don't even know if the board has the authority to do it without voter approval.
No, I was just gonna ask David that question. Do we have to put that before the voters to transfer that piece of property? Or does the
Well,
board
actually,
have
you
authority?
would be transferring it.
No, it's still be the Swanton.
It's always gonna be town
That's
property.
true. Yeah.
So you would be authorizing the rec department to do something there.
Usually, yeah.
And they would go through the, whatever steps were needed, like for zoning approval, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Technically, the towns don't need to go through zoning, but they do have to comply with the setbacks and so forth. And as a courtesy, it's probably a good thing to do for, to present it to the public so everyone sees what's going on. But all town property is owned by the town and not a department of the town.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, that's what I think. You know, if the select board has the authority and is comfortable, then that piece is easy, but maybe the budget piece to the voters is a separate line. If we come up with something in January, so you have time enough. What's the deadline, Kathy?
Oh, yeah, we got plenty of time.
Oh, no.
January,
You got another.
Couple more
Well, you
weeks.
got at
we
least
got like
another month,
3
Yeah.
weeks.
4 weeks, you know, I
at
mean,
least. I mean.
we don't need it tomorrow, but I think it's a good idea to do it that way and make the community aware that the rec is gonna use this property. We're no longer gonna have it on the market for sale. This clears up all those issues. We're putting some funding in there this year, you know, to get the process started. I think the community will support it.
Well, and I just think that if we're going to, you know, if we wanna put some sort of, recreational community space at the rec department, so we'll take care of that whole engineering piece, try to figure out
Yeah.
where that's gonna fit. And in 2019, we did apply for a municipal planning grant to get a master plan, but we were denied, and we wanted to apply this year, but I believe the planning commission,
It'll be
applied.
part of the municipal.
But it's gonna be part of the municipal plan, so it's in the plan, it's just gonna take a little longer, but in the meantime, while we kind of figure out where the best fit is for that, I think we could try to, you know, figure out where we're gonna move. Not just like youth programs, but really think about the community as a whole. Like what, you know, our aging Vermonters, our teens, you know, our aging Vermonters don't really have a lot of places to recreate. So just thinking like, you know, bocce ball, you know, any outdoor activities for the aging Vermonters, just an opportunity to move, Earl thinks that's funny. Like fitness stations along the rec path, we had talked about that before, but just a stopping place for them there, and being right across from the school.
Us old people can only make it so far before we have to rest.
You can park there. I'll put a bench there for you, Earl. I even will put your name on it, Earl Fournier.
Yeah, right. Could we go back and take a look at all the ideas that the public submitted of what they would like to see for that property? From a dog park to a pavilion, that maybe we could accommodate a large group instead of just a couple groups.
Right.
For me, I would love to see a pavilion there where I could go there and have a picnic with my grandkids and then go play. And as adults, they could go do some of the things and had a dog with them. So I think the more that we could get in there, not just recreation as in sports and health,
Agreed.
I think that would be a huge sell to the community.
And you want that by mid-December?
No, I'm just saying, just a thought
I mean,
process.
mid-January,
Right.
because again, if we're trying to get on the budget for,
I think maybe
2022.
we could shoot for the first meeting in January. I mean, I give you, you know, 2.5, 3 weeks of the
Well, that's
holidays
it.
and stuff, but, you know, I mean, but,
It's
you
tight.
know, I mean, the budget is the you know, that we're gonna need to get in there, you know.
okay. Let's see if we
Or
can get
the
people
second
together.
meeting, if that makes our schedule, do you know what the schedule is?
I get that schedule.
January
I have that
4th
schedule
is the
somewhere,
first
but
meeting.
it's off the schedule.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can do that.
When's
My office
4th,
is coming.
January
So
8th.
no longer
Well,
sell it.
January
No
18th
longer
is
sell it
probably
and
Martin
use
Luther
it for
King.
recreational
Yeah.
purposes.
That,
Or-
yeah, so.
I don't wanna call it, well.
So,
most of it
but the
is
4th
just
is
a
the
dog
first.
park,
Yeah.
a ball field or
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah,
Meeting.
I can do that.
I think I'll do that.
No,
Go ahead.
that's fine.
Oh,
No, good.
Brian.
I'm gonna,
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that the 4th Street property, no longer be on the market, and that, we use that for recreational purposes for the community of Swanton as whole as at large. Fair enough?
Can we get a second on that?
I'll
Second that.
There we go, we got 2 seconds. I
I'll
was
third.
close draw, I don't know who gets it, but it's up to Josie.
Give it to Earl.
Step
Any other
one, step
discussion?
one.
Yeah,
We'll take it.
any other discussion?
Betsy, you're smiling.
All in favor,
Well, I
signify by
guess-
saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
I just really appreciate that you value that piece of property as a, community use. So I just wanna thank you on that, you know.
Absolutely.
I think
And
the
I-
more
And we will get you something to take a look at
Mhm.
and incorporate as much as we can.
Yeah.
I think it'd be an easier sell,
Well,
try
we
to satisfy
need to-
more people.
To make it, he's like, just like you said, as much as possible, tell the taxpayers what we're planning is to do it.
Yeah.
If we're asking them for 50 grand to put towards it or whatever,
Yeah,
number comes up with, so.
Be
Yeah.
talking that high.
Just throwing out a number. Okay, 10 grand, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever the number.
Whatever we can get
Yep.
started,
Yeah.
whether it takes 1 year or 5 years, it'll be an improvement for
Yep.
Yeah.
Swan.
Well, I think that's what I was telling you, we gotta look, we
Yeah.
gotta look farther than just
Um,
right now.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Thank you.
thank
Yep,
you.
thank you.
Thank you very much, folks, for everything you brought to us. Appreciate it. Community Economic
Thanks, everyone.
Development,
Thank
updates next meeting. David, you added something under economic development.
Yeah, that was,
That was you,
the
Brian.
joint project.
Joint project, yeah.
Okay, just briefly, late yesterday afternoon at 5 o'clock, unfortunately I wasn't able to attend, but there was a meeting at the St. Albans Town Hall with their manager and their assistant manager, along with Reg Beliveau of the village, Neil Spear, Earl, and Elizabeth, and Tim Smith, and maybe there were others, I don't know. But, that was pretty
Tim
much
Smith
it.
wasn't there.
Oh, I thought he was.
No, the chair, Brendan.
Diesel, yeah.
There we go. So there was a discussion as to how the town and village of Swanton and the town of St. Albans can cooperate with each other in some sort of economic development projects in the future. There was a discussion, and it circled around to the project to proceed would be in our Southern Growth Center, which is adjacent to the Northern Growth Center of the town of St. Albans. The big stumbling block there, as we all know, is water and sewer. There is a consensus last night was to pursue actually establishing a water and sewage treatment utility or facility
District,
out
yeah.
there, district out there, like a water district. And they'd probably get the water from by drilling deep wells and then dealing with the sewage. And Corey had mentioned that they had a grant application. It's actually a loan, but in the end the loan would be forgiven, a revolving loan would be forgiven, so it's like a grant to pursue feasibility studies of such projects. And they've got one going, the town of St. Albans has one going for another project. He's going to check and see if they can put in another, since they already have one going, and possibly include the town and village of Swanton in that. And if not, they can't do it separately. He'll let us know, and it may be something that we would want to pursue on our own. The idea was, as I understood it, and Elizabeth was there, so she filled me in, was that even though it's outside of the village, but the village of Swanton has the expertise in running water and sewer, so they would probably be running it. And this would be the start, because to try to deal with the city and getting the water out there is another whole issue, which we won't go into.
But that is an issue, even though there's a possibility if they see that, the Swanton is in town, are actively pursuing this, and
They may wanna
change their position a little bit. Who knows? We're not. But the thing is, that has a tremendous amount of potential for this community, this area. Development is already there.
Yeah.
So we're, and
It's gonna go. It's gonna
the reality is it's gonna happen whether we're part of it or not.
And some other things that Corey had mentioned today, and actually way back 20 years ago or 25 years ago when I was the fire commissioner and Pete Prouty was fire chief, we talked about sooner or later the town of St. Albans will need a fire station out on the north end. We're probably going to need something on the south end. Well, you build one station for both departments.
Right, that was the
And
part.
sure, so that may be coming to fruition. We right now would have the issue is who's going to staff it. I mean, how many? But once development comes along, we're talking long range.
Right, and I think the other thing that's important for all of us to understand right here, all we talked about and agreed upon was a vision.
A vision.
Now, the devil's always in the details, but I couldn't commit the select board to it myself. So that's why I wanted to bring this issue up tonight, and, all that we need, I think right now, for the time being, is that we were gonna support this, and we wanna be involved in this process. And then, if money becomes, if there